Cadden Verity never thought he'd miss the feel of dirt, or the smell of it. Instead, he was standing in a gladiatorial arena carved into an asteroid, where the only thing that smelled was fear, and it was coming off him in waves. The aliens, towering things with skin like polished granite and eyes like insectoid nightmares, didn't help, nor did the fact that technically he was employed by them. Strategist, they called him. Cadden called it human-splaining. "You think they ever get tired of looking so smug?" he asked, not really expecting an answer. Beside him, the arena's overseer, a particularly dire alien named Graxon, made a sound like a garbage disposal choking on a fork. "Smugness is part of the charm," Graxon replied, voice a gravelly rumble that could sand down a spaceship's hull. "Besides, it's not like your kind has done much to wipe it off their faces." Graxon gestured toward the arena floor, where a pair of muscular aliens were busy tearing each other apart for the entertainment of the masses. "Yeah, well, give it time," Cadden muttered. "We're full of surprises, us humans." Like the flu, this was Cadden's life now, advising aliens on how to conquer Earth, or at least how not to get their spiky asses handed back to them. Earth was next on their list, but the planet had one trick up its sleeve: unpredictable weather. Hurricanes, tornadoes, snowstorms in July. The aliens, who had conquered entire solar systems with ease, couldn't figure out how to deal with a planet that had spring showers listed under potentially lethal. "Met a bloke once," Cadden started, leaning against the railing. "Thought he had it all figured out. Had a plan, you see, to counter Earth's weather." "What happened to him?" Graxon asked, not genuinely interested but playing the part. "Ran afoul of a lightning storm," Cadden said with a shrug. "Turns out, electricity's a bitch." Graxon gave him a look that was either contemplative or constipated. "We are considering manipulating the weather, controlling it," he said, casually, as if discussing the weekend's sports results. "It's a simple matter of applying the correct technology to subdue your planet's atmospheric conditions." "Simple, he says," Cadden chuckled. "You lot couldn't even handle a rainstorm without looking like drowned cats." The arena roared as one of the combatants landed a particularly gruesome blow. Cadden winced. "Speaking of weather, next time you lot plan on hosting a death match, maybe try installing some heaters." "Or are goosebumps supposed to be part of the fun?" Graxon ignored the jab. "Your planet will fall, Verity. It's only a matter of time. And I'd like to retire in a penthouse on Mars, but here we are," Cadden replied. "Nothing ever quite goes to plan, does it?" He glanced at the audience. A mix of conquered species and their once glorious leaders, now reduced to spectators by their conquerors. A reminder of what was at stake. "They really think mucking with the weather's gonna be that easy, huh?" he asked no one in particular. "If it was easy, we'd have done it already," Graxon grumbled, his claws clicking against the metal railing. "We underestimated your planet's eccentricities." "Eccentricities? Is that what we're calling tornadoes now?" "Adorable," Cadden said. "So what's the plan when you finally do figure it out? Turn Earth into a nice summer resort for when you're tired of asteroid arenas." Graxon sighed, a sound like a boulder rolling downhill. "Your sarcasm is noted, Verity, but we will succeed. We have to." Cadden watched as another alien got its head unceremoniously removed. "Well, best of luck with that. Just remember, nature's got a funny way of making us look like idiots." The conversation lulled, filled by the sounds of combat and the crowd's bloodthirsty cheers. Cadden couldn't help but think of home. Earth, with its inconvenient weather and relentless humanity. It was flawed, sure, but it was home, and he'd be damned if he let these granite-skinned bastards take it without a fight. "You ever think about retirement, Graxon?" Cadden asked suddenly. Graxon blinked slowly as if the concept was new to him. "Retirement? Yeah, you know, hanging up the all-conquering boots, taking up knitting or something," Graxon snorted. "Conquest is our way of life, Verity. We do not retire." "Pity," Cadden said. "Knitting's very relaxing, or so I've heard." Graxon gave him a sideways glance. "You make jokes, but your world is on the brink of annihilation." "Makes it easier to laugh," Cadden replied. And besides, it's not over till it's over. Humans have a knack for pulling off miracles at the last minute. Miracles won't save you, Verity, Cadden shrugged. Maybe not. But they might buy us some time. The fight ended with a particularly brutal finisher, and the crowd surged to its feet, a wave of noise and excitement. Cadden turned his back to the arena, looking instead at the vastness of space beyond the asteroid's transparent dome. You ever wonder why you do it? He asked, more to himself than Graxon. Conquer? Yeah. I mean, what's the point? You keep conquering more and more, but where does it end? Graxon pondered this for a moment. Perhaps it doesn't. Sounds exhausting, Cadden said, watching the stars twinkle. Me, I'd rather have a beer and a quiet night. Graxon shook his head. You humans are a strange species. Tell me about it, Cadden grinned. But those strange little quirks are what make us a tough nut to crack. The alien sighed again, a rumbling sound that echoed through the arena. If only we understood you better, Verity. Be careful what you wish for, Cadden warned. Understanding us might just make you like us. Graxon seemed to consider that for a moment, a rare smile creeping across his angular face. That would be a disaster, for you or for us, Cadden shot back, laughing. The arena lights dimmed, signaling the end of the match and the beginning of cleanup. Cadden turned away, ready to leave the din behind. See you tomorrow, Graxon, he said, waving over his shoulder. Tomorrow, Verity, Graxon replied, with a nod that might almost have been respectful. As Cadden walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The aliens might be confident, but Earth's weather wasn't their only problem. Humanity had a way of surviving against the odds, and he intended to make sure that continued, one sarcastic quip at a time. With a final look back at the arena, Cadden headed down the corridor, his mind already strategizing. Because if there was one thing he knew for sure, it was that Earth's storm might just be the calm before the real tempest. Cadden Verity strolled down the dimly lit corridor, the clink of his boots against the metal floor echoing with a rhythm that matched the pulse of the distant stars. The arena's roar faded behind him, but the smell, an unholy mix of burnt popcorn and sweat, clung to him like an annoying ex. He found a small comfort in the predictability of the corridor, a stark contrast to the unpredictable chaos of the gladiatorial arena or Earth's tempestuous weather. His destination, a secluded chamber where he was supposed to meet Zephyr, a mysterious AI with a penchant for dramatic entrances and overly complex metaphors. Zephyr had hinted at knowing more about the aliens' weather control technology, which might just be the leverage Cadden needed. As he approached the chamber, a section of the wall slid away with a whisper, revealing a room lit by the soft glow of holographic displays. Inside, Zephyr manifested as a floating holographic sphere, iridescent and shifting like a disco ball possessed by the spirit of a supercomputer. Ah, Cadden Verity, the AI voice was smooth, with a synthetic charm that suggested it had spent too much time listening to noir detective films. I was beginning to think you'd been consumed by an existential crisis. Cadden smirked, stepping into the room. Nah, I'm saving that for next Tuesday. Let's get to it, Zephyr. I hear you've got the scoop on our rocky-skinned overlord's latest toy. The weather control technology, Zephyr intoned, elongating each syllable like it was being paid by the second. Yes, I have acquired data suggesting it's both advanced and hilariously flawed. The aliens, in their arrogance, overlooked the chaotic nature of Earth's weather systems, a critical oversight. Cadden raised an eyebrow. You mean they didn't account for Mother Nature's mood swings? Shocking. Indeed, Zephyr said, the holographic sphere glowing a deep blue. They believe they can impose order on chaos. A noble folly, but folly nonetheless. What's the catch? Cadden asked, crossing his arms. There's always a catch. The catch, Zephyr echoed, is their reliance on their arena's overconfident infrastructure. During their demonstrations, they use the arena systems to simulate Earth's weather. It's their training ground before the real deal. So, you're saying we can exploit their overconfidence? Cadden rubbed his chin, a plan forming like a storm on the horizon. Precisely, Zephyr replied. The system is vulnerable. It can be accessed and analyzed during these simulations. We gather intel and then perhaps we manipulate it to our advantage. Cadden grinned, a sharp, mischievous grin that would make even the devil feel uneasy. Sounds like a plan. How do we start poking holes in their hubris? Zephyr pulsed with excitement. They underestimate you, Cadden. Use that to your advantage. Their arrogance blinds them to the possibility of sabotage. Cadden tilted his head, contemplating the irony. Arrogant aliens with a god complex. Who would have thought? Ah, the irony, Zephyr mused, the sphere shifting to a thoughtful green. Their belief in their superiority is their Achilles' heel. Exploit it and the storm will turn. All right, Cadden said, rolling up imaginary sleeves. Let's gather some dirt and rain on their parade. Literally. Zephyr flickered, a cascade of lights signifying approval. I will provide you with access credentials for the arena's simulation control. During their next demonstration, you can slip in and begin collecting the data we need. Sounds risky, Cadden acknowledged, but I've always been a fan of playing with fire. Or in this case, weather. The AI chuckled, a sound like digital chimes in a breeze. Just remember, Cadden, the best strategies are born from improvisation. Here's hoping I can improvise my way out of a lightning bolt, Cadden quipped. When's the next demonstration? Tomorrow, Zephyr replied, the sphere dimming slightly. I suggest you prepare. It will require all of your cunning. Cadden nodded, a flicker of determination in his eyes. Then it's settled. We'll turn their arrogance into our advantage. As he turned to leave, Zephyr called after him. Cadden, be careful. Overconfidence is a double-edged sword. Make sure it cuts them, not you. Cadden looked back, a roguish smile playing on his lips. Don't worry, Zephyr. I'm too cynical to be overconfident. With that, he left the chamber, the door sliding shut behind him. The corridors felt less oppressive now, the weight of a plan giving him an unusual buoyancy. If he could exploit the aliens' blind spots, he might buy Earth the time it needed, maybe even a chance at survival. He made his way back to his quarters, the sparse room that served as his living space since his employment by the aliens. As he sat on the edge of his cot, he considered the task ahead. It wasn't just a matter of survival for Earth. It was personal. He was tired of being the pawn, the human mascot in an arena of extraterrestrial egos. He lay back, staring at the ceiling, which was as featureless as his future seemed. Yet, for the first time in a long time, hope flickered stubbornly against the darkness. The next morning, Cadden sauntered into the arena's control room, a place typically off-limits to humans. But thanks to Zephyr's machinations, the doors parted for him like he was some sort of prodigal son. The room was a mess of alien tech, consoles, panels, and holograms flickering with data that looked like gibberish to anyone without the right set of eyes. Welcome, Cadden, Zephyr's voice emanated from the room's speakers, warm and inviting like a high-tech host welcoming him to a very exclusive club. Everything is set for the demonstration. The simulation will mimic Earth's monsoon season today. Monsoons, huh? That should be fun, Cadden quipped, sidling up to a terminal that Zephyr had unlocked for him. Let's see what these rockheads are up to. He plugged in a device Zephyr had crafted, a sleek piece of tech that looked suspiciously like a thumb drive but with extra bits sticking out. Almost immediately, data began to flow onto the screen, lines of alien script translating into something comprehensible. Look at that, Cadden muttered, scrolling through the information. They've got models for everything. Hurricanes, droughts, blizzards. It's like they went on a shopping spree of natural disasters. You see their mistake, though? Zephyr asked, the AI voice carrying a hint of mischief. Yeah, Cadden replied, tapping a particular line of code. It's all theoretical. They can simulate a monsoon, but they can't predict how it'll interact with Earth's actual climate. It's like trying to cook a gourmet meal by reading a menu. Precisely, Zephyr agreed. Their technology lacks the nuance required to deal with Earth's chaotic systems in real time. They believe control is the same as understanding. So, how do we use this? Cadden asked, still absorbing the wealth of information. By feeding them misinformation, Zephyr suggested. We alter their simulations, introduce variables they aren't prepared for. When they attempt real-world application, it will fail spectacularly. Cadden chuckled, a dark satisfaction settling over him. You mean make it so their weather magic turns into a wet fart when they try it on Earth? In more or less technical terms, yes, Zephyr confirmed, colors swirling through its holographic form. All right, let's get to work, Cadden decided, his fingers flying over the console. Let's give these pompous aliens a weather report they won't forget. The next ire was a blur of hacking, rewriting, and strategic chaos. Cadden introduced random fluctuations, programmed glitches, and even a few Easter eggs that would make Earth's weather seem as unpredictable as a cat in a room full of laser pointers. As he finished, Cadden leaned back, wiping imaginary sweat from his brow. Well, if this doesn't throw a wrench in their plans, I don't know what will, Zephyr hummed with approval. You've done well, Cadden. Now it's a waiting game. We'll see how they handle the storm you've unleashed. Cadden stood, pocketing Zephyr's device. Thanks, Zephyr, I couldn't have done it without you. Nor I without you, Zephyr replied, the AI voice carrying a rare note of camaraderie. Remember, whatever happens next, you're not alone in this. Good to know, Cadden said, heading for the exit. Just make sure to keep the lights on for me. I might need them soon. As he left the control room, Cadden couldn't help but smile. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. And if there was one thing humanity was good at, it was making small victories count. For now, he'd bide his time, watch the aliens fumble with their own arrogance. And when the moment was right, he'd be there with a few more surprises up his sleeve. Because in the grand game of survival, it wasn't just about who had the biggest gun, but who had the wits to use it. Cadden lounged in his quarters, the faint hum of alien machinery serving as an unwelcome lullaby. His mind was electric with the plan he and Zephyr had cooked up. But first, he had to make it look like he was just another hapless human, bumbling through the gladiatorial arena like a toddler trying to navigate a minefield. The arena was a patchwork quilt of chaos, stitched together by sweat, blood, and alien bravado. Cadden found himself center stage, the spotlight not so politely reminding him of his role as the evening's entertainment. Around him, the audience boomed, a cacophony of alien jeers and grunts that could only mean we're here to see you fail spectacularly. Graxon, the arena's gravelly-voiced overseer, loomed nearby, his expression dour as ever. Cadden Verity, he announced, his voice like rocks in a blender, today's challenge is simple. Survive. Simple, Cadden muttered, stepping forward. Like brain surgery with a rusty spoon. Graxon either didn't hear or didn't care, likely the latter. He waved a hand, and the arena shifted, panels rearranging to create a landscape that resembled a bad acid trip of Earth's ecosystems. Rainforest here, desert there, and a ridiculous line of mountains slicing through it all like a geographic joke. Cadden had a single job: survive long enough to be escorted back to his quarters. But today, he intended to add an unscripted twist. He planned to choreograph this mess into a fiasco so impressive the aliens would be too busy laughing to notice him slipping into their control room later. The simulation kicked off, and Cadden was off, a streak of movement among the absurdity. He threw himself into the chaos with the grace of a drunken acrobat, dodging contrived threats, occasionally flailing dramatically for effect. If this didn't qualify him for a posthumous Oscar, nothing would. As he staggered through a fake monsoon, rain pelting him with all the subtlety of a thrown brick, he grinned. This wasn't just theater, it was tactical theater. The aliens needed to believe he was not a threat, just another clumsy human stumbling in their cosmic circus. The arena's systems, still oblivious to the sabotage he'd planted, displayed the foe weather in all its glory. Holographic lightning arced across an equally holographic sky, accompanied by thunder that would make even Zeus blush. Seen worse on Earth, Cadden mumbled, ducking under a contrived hailstorm. He might have been talking to himself or to the invisible audience of one, Zephyr, who was probably watching through some hidden camera. The simulation's climax arrived with what was supposed to be an overwhelming sandstorm. Cadden executed a flawless pratfall, tumbling into the dirt with a thud that drove the alien watchers into a raucous fit of laughter. "That was for you, Graxon," Cadden muttered, dusting himself off as the overseer signaled the end of the spectacle. He was collected from the arena floor like a spent bottle cap, the aliens none the wiser to his true intent. Back in the corridor, Cadden managed a wink at one of the cameras. Round one goes to the underdog. Later, he slipped into the control room with the ease of a cat burglar. The place was quieter now, the din of the arena replaced by the soft hum of machinery. Zepha's voice chimed in, apparently amused. "Quite the performance. Think they'll nominate me for an award," Cadden quipped, approaching the console. "Best supporting human in a tragicomedy. You might have to settle for most spectacularly inept," Zepha teased, its holographic form flickering into existence beside him. "Close enough," Cadden replied. "Now about that data, anything I should know before I dive in?" Zepha shimmered with anticipation. "The aliens have been tweaking their weather systems, but their arrogance remains their undoing. New security protocols could pose a challenge." "Complications," Cadden said, rolling his eyes. "Wouldn't be fun without those." "Indeed," Zepha agreed. "Their systems now monitor for anomalies. You'll need to be cautious." "No pressure then," Cadden muttered, plugging Zepha's device back into the console. Data streamed in, a digital deluge that made his head spin. Cadden sifted through lines of code, looking for anything that would help Earth. It was like panning for gold in a septic tank. "They've added more fail-safes, but there's a pattern. Overlapping redundancies. If we hit one, it should cascade." "Smart," Zepha said. "But risky. One wrong move and they'll lock us out completely." "Story of my life," Cadden murmured. He worked quickly, fingers dancing over the alien interface. He injected new variables into their simulations, randomizing elements and delays that would send the alien systems into chaos. Once done, Cadden leaned back, taking a deep breath. "Now we wait." Zepha pulsed reassuringly. "You've done well. Their next test will be revealing." "Hope it's not my last," Cadden replied, extracting the device. "Let's get out of here before someone notices an extra human in the room." He exited the control room, the door sealing shut behind him like the lid on a coffin. The corridor was empty, a tunnel of metal and shadows leading him back to his quarters. Each step echoed with the weight of the gamble he'd just taken. Back in his quarters, Cadden lay on his bunk, staring at the featureless ceiling. The aliens might have the tech, but he had something they didn't, desperation born of losing everything. That gave him an edge, even if it was a jagged one. The next day, Graxon summoned him to the arena again. This time, the vibe was different, like everyone was in on a joke except him. Cadden felt the knot of concern tighten in his gut. Had they figured out his trickery? "Today," Graxon announced, his gravelly voice tinged with something Cadden couldn't quite place, "a demonstration of our weather technology's true might." Cadden resisted the urge to swallow his tongue. "Sounds delightful." The arena transformed once more, but unlike before, it glitched. Lightning flickered unnaturally, thunder danced out of sync. The aliens shifted, their confidence giving way to confusion. Graxon's facade cracked, his frown deepening with every misfire. Cadden couldn't help himself. "Looks like Zeus forgot his cue." Graxon glared, the weight of the audience's rising unease pressing down like a storm cloud. "There is an error." "Really?" Cadden replied, feigning ignorance. "Did you try turning it off and on again?" As the storm simulation spiraled into chaos, Cadden watched the aliens scramble. They barked orders, their controls slipping through their fingers like sand. It was beautiful in a schadenfreude sort of way. Zepha's voice buzzed through a hidden earpiece. "Well done, Cadden. Their systems are in disarray." "Yeah, but they are onto us now," Cadden whispered, eyes darting as alien security tightened around the arena. "We need to move fast before they connect the dots." Graxon was snarling now, the other aliens matching his agitation. "This is an anomaly, we will rectify it." Cadden chuckled darkly. Good luck with that. He knew he couldn't linger. The longer he stayed, the higher the chance of someone pointing a scaly finger. He needed to regroup, to plan his next move while the aliens were still licking their wounds. As he slipped away from the arena, the weight of uncertainty followed him like a second shadow. He had bought some time, but the aliens were on high alert now. The stakes had risen, and the margin for error shrunk to the size of an atom. In his quarters, Zepha's holographic form flickered into being, its tone grave. The aliens will investigate this thoroughly. Our window of opportunity is closing. Tell me something I don't know, Cadden sighed, rubbing his temples. Got any ideas? We need a diversion, Zepha suggested. Something to draw their attention while you secure more data. Cadden nodded, his mind racing. A diversion, a big one. Bigger than a weather glitch. Zepha shifted colors, contemplating. Perhaps a direct attack on their systems, something they can't ignore. Sure, why not? Cadden said, smirking. Let's add a little cyber warfare to the mix. Bold, Zepha acknowledged. But it might work. They'll focus on protecting their systems, giving you an opening. Cadden leaned back, the irony of it all not lost on him. Here I am, a human, outsmarting supposedly superior beings with nothing but a glorified calculator and a pocketful of sarcasm. Never underestimate human ingenuity, Zepha replied, or human stubbornness. Right, Cadden said, his mind made up. Let's give them a taste of both. We'll need allies, though. I can't do this alone. Zepha pulsed with approval. I'll begin reaching out. We have allies in unexpected places. As Cadden prepared for the next phase, he knew one thing for sure. The aliens had underestimated Earth, and now they were about to learn just how costly that mistake could be. And he'd make sure their lesson was unforgettable. The corridor was a maze of monotonous metal, the kind of place where hope came to die, and even the cockroaches looked like they'd given up. Cadden's footsteps echoed in the dimly lit passageway, each step like a tick of a countdown clock. Somewhere in this heap of steel and alien arrogance was someone named Thalo, who might be an ally or might be preparing a knife for Cadden's back. Either way, time was in short supply. Zepha, you sure this Thalo is the real deal? Cadden murmured, his eyes scanning the flickering shadows. The last thing he needed was to trust someone who'd sell him out for a shiny new piece of alien tech. Zepha's holographic form floated beside him, a ghostly companion tethered to his earpiece. According to our sources, Thalo's growing disenchanted with his own kind. They're all gunning for a promotion, but Thalo, he's looking for a way out. Not exactly a glowing endorsement, Cadden muttered, stopping at a junction that looked like every other damn junction. If he's so ready to jump ship, why hasn't he already? Who knows? Zepha replied with a digital shrug, its pixels shimmering like static. Alien bureaucracy, fear of getting vaporized, or maybe he's just waiting for the right human patsy, Cadden snorted. Well, if it's a patsy he's after, he's in luck. The door he'd been searching for finally appeared, a nondescript panel in a sea of nondescript panels. It slid open with a reluctant hiss, revealing a room that was somehow more depressing than the corridor. The kind of place where air fresheners went to die. Thalo was waiting, his alien features hidden in the gloom. If extraterrestrial fashion had a flannel phase, Thalo was deep in it. His eyes glowed with an unsettling intensity like headlights in fog. The sight of them was enough to make Cadden reconsider this whole alliance. Cadden Verity, Thalo said, his voice a gravelly purr that suggested he smoked 2 packs a day, of whatever aliens smoked. That's me, Cadden replied, folding his arms. The human, the myth, the possible execution victim. Thalo chuckled, a sound like pebbles tumbling down a cliff. It seems you've been causing quite the stir amongst my people. I admire your audacity. Glad to hear you're a fan, Cadden said, letting sarcasm drip from his words like venom from a snake. But you're not exactly wearing a Team Cadden shirt, so why should I trust you? I don't expect trust, Thalo replied, stepping into the light. His skin was an unhealthy shade of blue, as if someone had left him out in the cold too long. I expect necessity. Our interests align for now. Cadden leaned back against the wall, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease. And what are these interests? Thallo's eyes narrowed, their glow dimming. Your Earth, despite its chaotic nature, holds potential, my people. They underestimate it, just as they underestimate you. I can't argue with that, Cadden said. But I get the feeling you're not here to discuss the weather. Thallo smirked, a reptilian grin that might have been friendly or murderous. Hard to tell. I can provide access to systems you can't reach alone. In return, I want safe passage away from this place once you've achieved whatever it is you're planning. Cadden glanced at Zephyr, whose holographic form flickered thoughtfully. And why should we believe you won't just rat us out the second things get hairy? Thallo spread his hands, the universal gesture of what can you do? Because if I wanted you dead, you would be. My people are very efficient at terminating threats. Besides, I have no love for them. I seek freedom just like you. Freedom's a nice sentiment, Cadden mused, but that doesn't make you any less of a potential liability. Consider it a calculated risk, Thallo replied, his gaze steady. One that benefits us both. Cadden sighed, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down like a lead blanket. He wasn't in the business of trusting people on a whim, but desperate times called for desperate measures. And sometimes, desperate measures looked like a blue-skinned alien in a poorly lit room. All right, Thallo, Cadden said finally, extending a hand. You get us in and we'll get you out. Thallo took the offered hand, his grip firm and surprisingly warm. Deal. Zephyr's voice buzzed in Cadden's ear. I hope you know what you're doing. So do I, Cadden replied under his breath, releasing Thallo's hand. So do I. With their uneasy alliance formed, Cadden, Zephyr, and Thallo set to work. Their plan was bold, bordering on suicidal, just the way Cadden liked his plans. Thallo's inside knowledge would allow them to bypass the new security measures, while Zephyr's tech savvy would create the mother of all distractions. Thallo, you're on systems duty, Cadden instructed as they gathered around a holographic map that floated above the console. Zephyr will be your digital partner in crime. I'll handle the grunt work. Understood, Thallo said, his expression unreadable. Zephyr's holographic form brightened with anticipation. Let's give them a show they'll never forget, Cadden smirked. Nothing says surprise quite like a malfunctioning weather simulator. As they finalized their plan, Cadden couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with fire. But then again, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And if this whole mess went sideways, at least he'd have the satisfaction of knowing he went out causing trouble. The next phase involved slipping back into the belly of the beast, the arena's control center. It was a trek fraught with potential pitfalls, but Cadden had learned to move like a ghost through these corridors, leaving only whispers and uncertainty in his wake. Thallo led the way, his knowledge of the facility's layout proving invaluable. Zephyr's holographic projection flickered beside them, offering real-time updates on security patrols and system diagnostics. Looks like they're still licking their wounds from the last glitch, Zephyr noted, a hint of amusement in its synthetic voice. Perfect time for round 2. Let's hope they're still as incompetent, Cadden replied, his nerves humming like a live wire. They reached the control center without incident, Thallo's clearance granting them passage through security checkpoints that would have otherwise been impassable. Inside, the room hummed with the energy of alien technology, screens flickering with data, systems humming like a swarm of electronic bees. All right, Thallo, Cadden said, gesturing to the array of consoles. Do your thing. Thallo approached the controls with a confidence that suggested he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. His fingers danced over the interface, and Cadden could only hope this wasn't the moment Thallo decided to sell them out. Access granted, Thallo announced, his tone cool and professional. Zephyr, you're clear to initiate the distraction. Zephyr's projection flickered, then stabilized. Engaging now. The room was suddenly alive with activity as Zephyr's digital fingers probed the innards of the alien systems, injecting chaos into order. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and holographic displays warped into a maddening kaleidoscope. Looks like we hit a nerve, Cadden quipped, his heart pounding like a war drum. We've got their attention, Zephyr confirmed. But it won't last long. Thalo, how's our window looking? Thalo's eyes were fixed on the scrolling data, his jaw set. Their focus is on containment. We have a few minutes at most. Then let's not waste them, Cadden said, turning his attention to the primary console. He tapped into the system, fingers a blur as he sought the data that might just save Earth from becoming the universe's most inconvenient wet spot. Got it, he muttered, a triumph laced with tension. Now let's get the hell out of here. They retraced their steps, urgency hanging thick in the air. Cadden could feel the noose tightening as alien security scrambled to regain control. Zepha's updates crackled in his ear, a constant reminder of the razor's edge they walked. Security's on high alert, Zepha warned, its voice cutting through the din. We need to move faster. Working on it, Cadden replied, his pulse racing. Thalo, how's our exit looking? Thalo's expression was grim. Not good. They've locked down most of the facility. We'll need to find an alternate route. Wonderful, Cadden grumbled, because this wasn't complicated enough already. They navigated the winding corridors, their path illuminated by the flickering emergency lights. Cadden's mind raced with possibilities, each more desperate than the last. The weight of their mission pressed down like a stone, but he refused to buckle. Finally, they reached a service hatch, a narrow escape from the tightening net. Thalo worked quickly to bypass the lock, his movements sure and swift. Almost there, Thalo said, a note of relief in his voice. Let's hope almost is good enough, Cadden replied, casting a glance over his shoulder. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed ominously, like the ticking of an executioner's clock. The hatch swung open with a creak, revealing a narrow passageway bathed in shadows. Cadden didn't hesitate, diving into the dim corridor like a soldier going over the top. Thalo and Zepha followed, the hatch sealing behind them with a finality that left no room for second thoughts. They moved swiftly, Cadden leading the way through the labyrinthine maze. The passage twisted and turned, a claustrophobic nightmare that whispered promises of safety just out of reach. Keep going, Zepha urged, its voice a steadying presence in the chaos. We're almost clear. Cadden pushed himself to the limit, his body a machine of muscle and adrenaline. He could feel the burn of exhaustion creeping in, but he shoved it aside, focusing on the goal, a life beyond the clutches of alien arrogance. Finally, they emerged into a maintenance bay, the vast space echoing with the hum of machinery. Cadden drew a ragged breath, his heart pounding with the rhythm of survival. Almost feels like home, he quipped, scanning the room for threats. Thalo managed a weary smile, his eyes gleaming with shared relief. Let's hope it's a new beginning. Zepha's projection flickered, its tone triumphant. You've done it. We have the data. We've evaded capture. Cadden couldn't help but smile, a grim satisfaction in their hard-won success. And all it cost us was a few more gray hairs. But as he surveyed the room, a new resolve settled in his bones. Their fight was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. The aliens might have underestimated them once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Thalo, Cadden said, turning to their unlikely ally. Let's see if we can't turn this data into something useful. Thalo nodded, his expression resolute. For Earth, Cadden echoed, his voice a promise and a threat. And with that, they set to work, determined to turn the tide and show the universe just what a few determined underdogs could accomplish when pushed to the brink. Cadden's nose wrinkled as the stale scent of the maintenance bay lingered in the air, a perfume of neglect and desperation. The irony wasn't lost on him. They'd escaped one cage only to find themselves in another. At least this one didn't come with an audience expecting him to die in entertaining fashion. Zepha's holographic form hovered beside him, throwing glitches like confetti at a malfunctioning parade. We've managed to save Earth from being the galaxy's new aquarium exhibit. Now what? Now, Cadden said, wiping the sweat from his brow, we figure out how to stop these bastards from turning Earth into their personal weather control experiment. Sounds simple, Zepha replied, the sarcasm dripping like oil from a busted engine. Just some minor planetary salvation, followed by brunch. Thalo, the blue-skinned enigma they decided to trust, or at least not shoot at immediately, was already elbow-deep in the console, trying to seduce it into giving up its secrets. We need to access their primary weather control servers. Without that, our only option is to scream and wave our arms like lunatics. Not a fan of the arm-waving plan, Cadden said, crossing his arms. I prefer a less interpretive approach. The air was thick with the hum of alien machinery, an unsettling lullaby that threatened to lull them into complacency. But complacency was a luxury they couldn't afford, not with the stakes as high as they were. I hate humidity, Cadden muttered, thinking of Earth. The one thing they couldn't get right. Zephyr flickered, its voice as dry as the Mojave. Humans prefer their disasters homegrown, thank you very much. As if on cue, the facility shuddered, the lights flickering like they were auditioning for a horror movie. Cadden's gut twisted, a familiar feeling that told him things were about to get spectacularly worse. Our friends are getting restless, Thalo said, his fingers moving faster across the console. It seems they've decided to kick off their little weather experiment early. Cadden cursed under his breath. Fantastic. We're about to be the opening act in an apocalypse. Thalo's brow furrowed, the alien's expression a textbook example of I'm definitely not panicking. We need to disrupt the signal. If they initiate the sequence, Earth's going to experience all 4 seasons in one day, on repeat. Great, Cadden said. Not just a weather experiment, but a sadistic one. How do we stop it? Zephyr, Thalo gestured at the flickering hologram. Can you reroute the power or jam their systems? Zephyr hesitated, its form wavering. The data streams are fluctuating. It'll take time to stabilize them. Time's something we don't have, Cadden said, his voice tight as he glanced at Thalo. You sure you're on our side? Thalo met his gaze, an intensity in his eyes like he was trying to bore a hole through Cadden's skull with sheer determination. If I wanted you dead, I'd just let them succeed. Reassuring, Cadden grumbled, his stomach doing somersaults. Let's hope your faith in us isn't misplaced. A klaxon blared, the sound ricocheting off the walls like 1,000 angry bees. The control room lights switched from standard gloom to full-on panic mode, red, the universal color of run or die. Guess that's our cue, Zephyr said, its tone far too chipper for Cadden's taste. Keep them busy, Cadden snapped, the words more a prayer than a command. Thalo, what are our options? We could try a manual override, Thalo suggested, as the room vibrated with the alien machinery's escalating hum. But it's risky. In this situation, what a shocker, Cadden replied, sarcasm hugging every syllable like a desperate lover. The facility shuddered again as if it was sharing in Cadden's exasperation. Fine, he said, clenching his jaw. Let's go do something stupid. They were already out the door, moving like a trio of wayward souls in search of a miracle. Cadden could feel the tension crackling between them, an electric current that dared them to falter. Zephyr's updates were sporadic, the voice in Cadden's ear a mix of static and strained optimism. I'm stabilizing the streams as best I can. Do it faster, Cadden said, swerving to avoid a pipe that hung too low. I'd rather not audition for the role of extra crispy human. They reached a junction, the signs painted in an alien script that looked like someone had sneezed mid-calligraphy. Thalo hesitated, his eyes scanning the symbols. This way, he declared, pointing down a corridor that looked marginally less depressing than the others. Cadden followed, hoping Thalo's sense of direction was better than his taste in allies. If we make it out of this, remind me to buy you a GPS. The corridor twisted and turned like it was designed by a drunk architect with a penchant for mazes. Cadden could feel the sweat trickling down his spine, the anticipation and fear a cocktail he'd rather not sip again. Almost there, Thalo announced, his voice a lifeline in the chaos. They skidded to a halt at a door that looked more secure than Fort Knox on steroids. Thalo slapped a hand against the panel, his features tense with concentration. Now or never, Thalo muttered, working the lock like his life depended on it, which, incidentally, it did. The door slid open with a reluctant hiss, revealing a room filled with consoles and screens that blinked ominously. Cadden's stomach did another flip, but he swallowed the nausea, stepping inside. "This is it," Thalo said, moving to the main console. "The control hub for the weather simulator. It's like Christmas, but with more global destruction," Cadden quipped, joining Thalo. "Let's shut this down." Thalo's fingers danced over the controls, a blur of motion as he input commands. Zepha's voice crackled in Cadden's ear, the words a bomb on frayed nerves. "I'm diverting resources to support Thalo's efforts." "Hold tight. Not planning on going anywhere," Cadden replied, eyes fixed on the screens as data scrolled past. "Just make sure we're not toast." The seconds ticked by with excruciating slowness, each heartbeat a countdown to oblivion. Cadden could feel the pressure mounting, a vice around his chest that threatened to squeeze the life out of him. Finally, Thalo let out a breath, his shoulders slumping with relief. Override complete, the system's in safe mode. Cadden allowed himself a moment of triumph, a flicker of hope in the darkness. "We did it, for now," Thalo said, his tone cautious. "But it won't take them long to notice and fix it." Cadden nodded, the reality of their situation settling in like a rain cloud overhead. They'd bought themselves time, but not much else, and the clock was ticking with a vengeance. "Zepha," Cadden said, his mind already racing to the next step. "What's our status?" Zepha's holographic form quivered, the data stream still fluctuating like a heartbeat on the brink of failure. "We've bought some time, but the connection's unstable. I'm doing everything I can." "Keep at it," Cadden said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We're not done yet." Thalo turned to him, the exhaustion heavy in his eyes. "What's the plan now?" Cadden glanced around the room, the alien technology a reminder of how out of their depth they were. "We need to get out of here, regroup, and figure out how to neutralize their plans for good." The facility shuddered again, a reminder that their reprieve was temporary. Cadden felt the weight of their mission pressing down, but he refused to buckle. They'd come this far, and he wasn't about to let the universe's worst weather forecast stop them. "Let's move," Cadden said, heading for the door. "We've got a planet to save." They made their way back through the corridor, the oppressive silence a reminder of the storm that loomed on the horizon. Cadden could feel the doubts creeping in, the uncertainty a shadow that threatened to swallow him whole. "Thalo," he said, keeping his voice low. "This data we've got, can it really make a difference?" Thalo nodded, his expression earnest. "If we can get it to the right people, yes. It's the key to stopping their control over Earth's weather." Cadden nodded, the determination a fire that burned away the shadows of doubt. They had a chance, and he'd be damned if he let it slip through their fingers. They reached another intersection, the facility's layout a maze of despair and dead ends. Zepha's voice crackled to life, a beacon in the darkness. "I've managed to stabilize the connection for now. We're still in this." "Good to hear," Cadden said, relief washing over him like a cool breeze. "Let's get out of this hellhole and get to work." Their steps quickened, the urgency a drumbeat that drove them forward. Cadden could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, the anticipation a bitter taste on his tongue. They reached the exit, the door a final barrier between them and the chaos outside. Cadden hesitated, his hand on the handle as he glanced at Thalo. "Ready?" he asked, his voice a battle cry and a plea. Thalo nodded, his resolve a mirror of Cadden's own. "For Earth." Cadden pushed the door open, the light of the outside world a harsh contrast to the dim corridors. They stepped through, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders. But as they left the facility behind, Cadden couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. The stakes were higher than ever, and the odds were stacked against them. But they had something the aliens hadn't counted on, a determination that burned brighter than any star. And as they moved forward, Cadden knew that nothing would stop them from fighting for their home, not even the universe's worst weather forecast. Cadden Verity had never considered himself a meteorologist. Hell, he barely understood the weather section of the newspaper back on Earth. But here he was, deep in alien territory, playing the reluctant hero in a cosmic drama, where the universe's worst catastrophes were scheduled with grim precision. Ah, the smell of impending doom, Cadden muttered as he walked through the dimly lit corridor, each step echoing with the sound of a man who'd sooner bet on a three-legged horse than on his own survival. Zephyr flickered into view, its holographic presence as comforting as a ghost with good intentions. "I hear doom is in this season," it quipped. "Very chic in the apocalyptic circles." Cadden smirked, the kind of smile you give when you're about to leap off a cliff and hope the ground beneath is less rock and more marshmallow. "Who says fashion's dead?" They slipped back into the hub of alien havoc, otherwise known as the room filled with consoles that looked like someone decided that function should never outshine form. Screens blinked back at them, taunting in a language designed to give linguists nightmares. Thalo was already elbow-deep in cables, his blue-skinned hands a blur of motion. "I've been thinking," he said without looking up, a dangerous phrase in any language. "Their systems rely heavily on predictable patterns." "Great," Cadden replied, sarcasm coating his words like a fine varnish. "Because Earth's weather is the poster child for predictability." Thalo's brow furrowed, a gesture that seemed to suggest he was either pondering life's biggest mysteries or just constipated. "Exactly. That's the flaw." Cadden paused, the gears in his brain turning with the speed of a hamster on a broken wheel. "You mean the chaos on Earth could actually be our ace in the hole?" Zephyr chimed in with a tone that was somehow both condescending and supportive. "You catch on quick, strategist." Cadden shot the hologram a look that could peel paint. "All part of my human-splaining duties." Thalo nodded, his eyes gleaming with the kind of hope that should come with a warning label. "If we can introduce enough chaos into their systems, they'll be forced to shut them down to avoid catastrophic failure." "Introduce chaos," Cadden repeated, his mind already racing through the possibilities. "I think I know just how to do it." Zephyr's form crackled. "Please tell me it doesn't involve you singing karaoke." "Tempting, but no," Cadden replied. "We need to give them a taste of Earth's finest, unpredictable wild weather." Thalo looked skeptical, a monument to blue-skinned doubt. "But how?" Cadden grinned, and it was the kind of grin that said, "I'm about to do something incredibly stupid." "We manipulate their weather control servers. Make them think Mother Nature's gone rogue." Zephyr flickered, the hologram's equivalent of raising an eyebrow. "Won't that draw every alien bouncer in the joint?" "Probably," Cadden admitted, the word rolling off his tongue like a swear in church. "But we don't have a choice. It's now or never." They moved to the central console, the screens lighting up like a Christmas tree on acid. Cadden's fingers danced over the controls with a confidence that was more bravado than skill. Thalo hovered over his shoulder, murmuring instructions that sounded more like incantations. "Zephyr, I need you to simulate a feedback loop," Cadden said, his voice low and intense. "We'll flood their systems with data so erratic it'll make a roller coaster look like a kiddie ride." Zephyr's voice was steady, a rock in the storm. "On it. Just don't expect miracles. I'm more of an inconvenient truth." Cadden smirked as the machinery around them groaned in protest, the alien tech struggling against the torrent of chaos they were unleashing. "I'll take inconvenient over dead any day." The room pulsed with energy, the screens flashing warnings in a language that required more tentacles than Cadden had to decipher. Sweat trickled down his neck as he worked, each second stretching into an eternity. Thalo's face was a mask of concentration, his eyes locked on the data streaming past. "It's working," he said, a hint of disbelief coloring his voice. "Their systems are struggling to compensate." Zephyr's projection flickered with a triumphant glow. "Looks like we've kicked the hornet's nest." "Good," Cadden replied, his focus unwavering. "Now let's make sure those hornets stay confused long enough for us to get out of here." The facility shuddered again, the vibrations a reminder that they were teetering on the edge of disaster. Cadden could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, the thrill of the gamble, a heady rush. But even as they worked, a part of him couldn't shake the feeling that they were dancing on the edge of a knife, one misstep away from catastrophe. The alien overseers wouldn't take this lying down, and when they retaliated, it would be with the subtlety of a brick through a window. "Thalo," Cadden said, his voice a low rumble. "How long until they figure out what we're doing?" Thalo grimaced, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Not long. We need to move. Now." Zepha's form stabilized, a testament to their tenuous control over the situation. "I've set the system to loop chaos until they manually override it. That should buy us some time." "Time we desperately need," Cadden said, his mind already racing to the next hurdle. "Let's get the hell out of here." They bolted from the room, the corridors a blur as they retraced their steps through the alien facility. Cadden could feel the weight of their actions pressing down, a reminder that their interference might just tip the scales in their favor or send them crashing down in flames. Zepha kept pace, its holographic form darting ahead like a mischievous sprite. "I've mapped the quickest route to the exit. And by quickest, I mean the least likely to end with us as alien target practice." "Lead the way," Cadden said, the words laced with a grim determination. The corridors twisted and turned, each a potential dead end in this labyrinth of despair. Cadden's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a countdown to the unknown. Thalo kept pace beside him, the alien's presence a grounding force in the chaos. "If we survive this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I owe you a debt." Cadden snorted, a rough laugh that echoed off the walls. "Survive first, thank me later." They reached a junction, the signs a jumble of alien script that might as well have been hieroglyphs. Zepha's voice crackled through the static. "Left here, then up the corridor." "We're close." Cadden nodded, his feet pounding against the metal floor, his mind a blur of possibilities and contingencies. They were playing a dangerous game, one that could end in disaster with a single mistake. But as they raced through the facility, Cadden couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. They'd found a crack in the alien armor, a flaw that might just be enough to turn the tide. "Almost there," Thalo said, his breath coming in short bursts. The exit loomed ahead, the door a promise of freedom and the storm that awaited them outside. Cadden's nerves thrummed, a live wire ready to snap. Zepha's voice was a whisper in his ear. "Once we're out, we need to regroup and figure out our next move." "Right," Cadden said, his mind already spinning with plans and counterplans. "But first, let's get some distance between us and this place." They burst through the exit, the harsh light of the outside world a welcome slap in the face. The air was crisp, a stark contrast to the stale confines of the facility. Cadden paused, his chest heaving as he took in the landscape. The alien world stretched out before them, a tapestry of unfamiliar colors and textures. It was hostile and indifferent, a reminder that they were far from home. But even as he stood there, Cadden felt the weight of what they'd accomplished. They'd taken a stand, thrown a wrench into the aliens' well-oiled machine. It wasn't enough, not yet. They still had a long road ahead, filled with dangers and uncertainties. But they'd made a start, and for the first time, Cadden allowed himself to believe that they might just have a fighting chance. Thalo joined him, the alien's expression one of cautious optimism. "We've managed to disrupt their systems, but it won't last forever." Cadden nodded, the reality of their situation settling in. "Then we need to move fast. Figure out our next steps before they come after us." Zepha hovered nearby, its presence a reminder of their fragile alliance. "I'll keep monitoring their systems, alert you to any changes." Cadden took a deep breath, the determination in his eyes burning brighter than ever. "Let's get to work. We've got a planet to save, and I'm not about to let some aliens with a god complex get in our way." The path ahead was fraught with danger, the outcome uncertain. But as Cadden looked out across the alien landscape, he felt a spark of hope ignite within him. They'd found the flaw, turned chaos into a weapon, and now it was up to them to wield it. No matter what lay ahead, they'd face it together. Because sometimes, chaos was all you needed to turn the tide. Cadden Verity, who had somehow dodged more bullets than a cartoon rabbit, stood panting beside Thalo outside the alien facility. His lungs were working harder than a politician at a fact-checking convention. He took a moment to appreciate the alien landscape that sprawled out before him, a desolate, cheerless expanse that made the Sahara look like a tropical paradise. "So, we blew up the Death Star. Now what?" Cadden asked, words dripping with sarcasm as he caught his breath. Zepha's holographic form flickered nearby, looking as smug as a glitchy hologram could manage. "If you're waiting for a medal ceremony, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed, strategist." "More like strategist who stumbled into success by accident," Cadden muttered. "Still, there's a certain satisfaction in screwing up their plans and living through it." Thallo's blue-skinned brow furrowed, looking like a crumpled piece of alien origami. "We must maintain the chaos. If their systems stabilize, it's game over." "Right. We keep the whirlwind spinning," Cadden replied, his voice grim but determined. "Time to turn the arena into nature's madhouse. Watch the spectators get more than they paid for." The plan was simple, really. Simple in the way juggling chainsaws is simple, plenty of room for disaster. They needed to keep the alien weather control systems in chaos long enough for Earth's unpredictability to take the lead role. Cadden felt like a ringmaster trying to corral lions with a stick made of spaghetti. "Zepha," Cadden said, his tone all business. "How's the sabotage holding up?" The hologram's projection shimmered slightly, like it was enjoying an invisible breeze. "The systems are still in disarray, but they won't stay that way without a little encouragement." "Well, guess it's time to play the world's worst DJ," Cadden quipped, feeling the ridiculousness of their plan gnaw at the edge of his sanity. "Let's pump up the volume and hope they like the sound of chaos." Back in the facility, which had the charm of a Soviet-era bunker, Thallo and Cadden huddled around the main console again. The screens blazed with alien gibberish that looked like an intergalactic eye test. Zepha, ever the helpful apparition, appeared over the console. "I can keep feeding their systems data loops. Think of it as installing a virus that makes them think they've downloaded a billion cat videos." "That's either genius or sheer madness," Cadden said with a snort. "But given our track record, it's probably both." Thallo's fingers flew over the controls, translating the alien script into something resembling comprehension. "We must be quick. The security systems will adapt if we linger." Yeah, Blue Man," Cadden replied without missing a beat. "Let's ride this chaos train till the wheels fall off." Cadden's fingers danced on the console, his skin prickling with the thrill of daring the universe to interfere. Each keystroke was a defiant middle finger to the alien overlords, a gamble that they'd roll snake eyes. Zepha's presence flickered, seemingly amused. "You do realize you've made a game show out of galactic warfare?" "Price is right, Zepha," Cadden shot back, his concentration unbroken. "Now let's crash this alien party." The screens pulsed with new alerts, a symphony of warnings that suggested the system was having a nervous breakdown. Cadden had to admit it was a beautiful sight, like fireworks on the 4th of July, if the fireworks were a harbinger of planetary chaos. Thallo's voice cut through the tension. "We're nearing critical overload. The systems cannot decipher the storm patterns we've introduced." "Good," Cadden said, allowing himself a rare moment of satisfaction. "Let's see how their fancy tech deals with a good old-fashioned thunderstorm." Zepha chimed in with mock cheer. "Looks like Mother Nature decided to RSVP with a +1. As if on cue, the arena outside transformed into a tempest of chaos. Lightning danced across the sky, thunder rumbled like a hungry giant, and the rain came down in sheets. The arena's alien spectators, expecting a mundane display of human incompetence, instead got front-row seats to Earth's most unpredictable show. Cadden watched the screens with a mix of awe and terror. The aliens had expected a controlled environment, a neat little simulation of Earth's quirks. What they got was a natural disaster that refused to play by the rules. "Think they regret their weather subscription yet?" Cadden asked, unable to hide his glee. Thallo nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips despite the seriousness of the situation. They underestimated what they cannot control. Zepha's projection flickered like a light bulb in a bad horror movie. And our audience? Seems like we've given them their money's worth. On the other side of the glass, the alien overseers were in disarray, scrambling to make sense of the chaos unfolding in the arena. The spectators, once eagerly anticipating Cadden's failure, now looked on in disbelief as nature defied expectations. Cadden felt a swell of pride mixed with a healthy dose of schadenfreude. They wanted a spectacle, they got a cataclysm. The facility shook with the force of the storm, a testament to the havoc they'd unleashed. Cadden barely noticed the trembling floors, his focus zeroed in on the chaos he'd helped create. "Hold the line, Zepha," Cadden said, eyes locked on the console. "We need to keep this up a bit longer, then we bail." Zepha's voice was steady, a beacon amidst the madness. "Already on it, strategist." The alien systems continued to struggle, their attempts to regulate the weather reduced to a futile exercise in damage control. Cadden could almost hear the gears grinding in their collective heads, a symphony of confusion and frustration. But as the storm raged on, Cadden knew they were playing a dangerous game. The aliens wouldn't sit idly by while their technology was reduced to a laughingstock. It was only a matter of time before they regrouped, and when they did, it would be with a vengeance. "Time to disappear," Cadden said, urgency lacing his words. "The longer we stay, the closer we get to being alien toast." Thalo nodded, his gaze never leaving the screen. "We've done all we can. Now we must retreat." Zepha's projection flickered, a ghostly presence in the chaos. "I'll maintain the loop as long as possible. Buy you some time." Cadden hesitated, a rare moment of uncertainty worming its way into his thoughts, but this was no time for second-guessing. They'd set the stage, turned the tide. Now it was time to vanish before the curtain fell. "Let's go," Cadden said, his resolve solidifying. Before they realized the humans have left the building. With one last look at the console, Cadden turned and bolted for the exit, Thalo at his side. Zepha's voice echoed in his mind, a silent promise that the chaos would hold just a little longer. The corridors blurred past, each step a reminder that they were running against time, a race that could end in triumph or catastrophe. Cadden's heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of adrenaline and defiance. Behind them, the storm raged on, a testament to human ingenuity and the unpredictable beauty of chaos. The alien overseers were left to scramble, their carefully constructed world unraveling at the seams. As they burst through the exit, the harsh light of the alien world greeted them once more. Cadden paused just long enough to catch his breath, his eyes scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. Thalo joined him, the alien's expression a mix of relief and determination. "We've done it. The systems are in disarray." "Yeah," Cadden replied, his voice a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "But it's not over yet. We've still got a planet to save." Zepha's holographic form flickered beside him, a reminder of the fragile alliance between human and machine. "I'll keep an eye on the systems from here. Make sure they don't get their act together too soon." "Thanks, Zepha," Cadden said, his gratitude genuine despite the sarcasm laced in his tone. "Couldn't have done it without you." The path ahead was uncertain, the outcome still hanging in the balance. But for the first time, Cadden allowed himself to feel hope. They'd taken a stand, turned chaos into their greatest weapon, and now it was up to them to finish the job, to take Earth back from the clutches of those who'd underestimated the power of unpredictability. Cadden looked out across the alien landscape, his resolve firm. They'd come this far, defied the odds and the universe itself. There was no turning back now, because sometimes chaos wasn't something to be feared. Sometimes chaos was their greatest ally, and with it, they might just win the fight for their world. Cadden and Thalo stumbled into the maintenance bay, the stale scent of the neglected area wrapping around them like an old, musty blanket. Behind them, the storm still raged, its fury now a distant whisper compared to the pounding of Cadden's heart. He leaned against a decrepit console, catching his breath. "Well, that was a hell of a show," he said, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Think they'll ask for a refund?" Thallo's expression was one of weary amusement. "I doubt they have a return policy for cataclysms. Besides, I think they got more than they bargained for." The alien's humor was a rare thing, as fleeting as a sunny day in a dystopian novel. But after what they'd just pulled off, Cadden figured even a blue-skinned origami alien deserved a laugh. Zepha's holographic form flickered into view, her presence as reassuring as a ghost with a sense of humor. "The aliens are retreating," she said, her tone laced with surprise. "Seems they've had enough of Earth's unpredictable hospitality." Cadden chuckled, though the sound came out more like a wheeze. "Can't say I blame them. I mean, who wants front row seats to the apocalypse? Besides us, I mean." "Aliens, apparently," Thallo said, his brow furrowed, though with him that was the default setting. "Their overconfidence was their downfall." "Yeah, well, arrogance and ignorance make quite the cocktail," Cadden replied. "And we just spiked it with a shot of chaos." Zepha hovered close, the light from her projection casting eerie shadows on the walls. "The systems are still in disarray, but they won't stay that way forever. They'll regroup eventually." "Not our problem anymore," Cadden said, trying to convince himself as much as the others. "We did our part, let them sort out the mess." "They underestimate us," Thallo added, his voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. "Earth's resilience is not something they accounted for. Or maybe we just got lucky," Cadden said with a shrug. "Luck, chaos, same difference when you're in the thick of it." Zepha's projection flickered like a candle in a drafty room. "I've decided to remain here," she said, her voice devoid of its usual glitchy amusement. "This place needs a guardian, and my presence here can ensure the systems remain unstable." Cadden blinked, momentarily thrown off balance by the announcement. "Zepha, you sure about this?" "I mean, you're just getting to the best part, watching us humans pick up the pieces." Her smile was soft, surprising in its sincerity. "You've shown me enough to know that humanity's capacity for chaos is boundless, but here, my abilities can make a real difference." Thallo inclined his head, a gesture of respect. "Your presence here will ensure Earth's safety." Cadden felt a pang of something, regret maybe, or the realization of a goodbye. "Guess we'll just have to soldier on without our sassy ghost guide." Zepha laughed, a sound that managed to be both comforting and mocking. "You'll do fine. Besides, I'll be here keeping the light on." Cadden nodded, a rare moment of solemnity washing over him. "Thanks, Zepha." "For everything." Thallo touched a control panel, his gaze fixed on the alien landscape beyond the maintenance bay. "The aliens are retreating. Their ships are withdrawing from Earth's orbit." Cadden let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "So, we won. If winning means driving away a superior alien force with weather and sarcasm, then yes," Thallo said dryly. Cadden grinned, though it was tinged with exhaustion. "I'll take it, short-term victory in a long-term war." Zepha's form shimmered, her presence already fading like the last traces of a dream. "Remember, Cadden, chaos is your greatest ally. Use it wisely." With that, she was gone, leaving only the faint hum of alien machinery in her wake. Cadden pushed off the console, his legs still unsteady from exertion and adrenaline. "Well, guess we better get home." "Can't let Earth rebuild itself, can we?" Thallo nodded, the alien's expression one of quiet determination. "There is much to be done." As they made their way back through the corridors, the silence felt heavy with the weight of their victory. The aliens had come to Earth, full of arrogance and hubris, ready to make it their playground. But they'd underestimated the power of chaos and the resilience of those who thrived in it. Cadden glanced at Thallo, the alien's steady presence a reminder of the unlikely alliances forged in the crucible of adversity. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm gonna miss that glitchy hologram." Thallo's lips twitched into a rare smile. She was unique. Understatement of the century. But yeah, she was. They reached the exit, the harsh light of Earth's sun breaking through the gloom. The planet lay ahead, battered but unbowed, a testament to the indomitable human spirit and sheer human stubbornness. Cadden paused at the threshold, taking in the sight of his world, scarred but still standing. "We did it," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "Crazy bastards that we are, we actually did it." Thalo joined him, the alien's gaze thoughtful. "Earth will rebuild, it always does." "Yeah," Cadden agreed. "And we'll be there every step of the way, making sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands again." They stepped out into the light, leaving behind the chaos they'd orchestrated, the destruction they'd turned to their advantage. But the fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. Cadden knew that the aliens would regroup, would try again. But next time, Earth would be ready. Because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was fighting back, against all odds, against all enemies. As they walked toward the future, Cadden let hope unfurl in his chest. It was a fragile thing, easily crushed, easily forgotten. But for now, it was enough. And maybe, just maybe, chaos would always be their greatest ally. Back on Earth, the remnants of the storm they'd unleashed were still visible, the clouds slowly parting to reveal a battered sky. Cadden watched as people emerged from their shelters, blinking up at the unexpected sunshine, their expressions a mix of relief and bewilderment. "Looks like they're wondering what the hell just happened," Cadden said, nodding toward a group of survivors. Thalo shrugged, an oddly human gesture coming from an alien. "Let them wonder. Sometimes not knowing is better." "Truer words, Thalo," Cadden said, slapping the alien on the back. "Now let's get back to work. We've got a planet to patch up, and I don't think it comes with a warranty." As they moved through the streets, the signs of destruction were everywhere, buildings reduced to rubble, roads cracked and broken. But amidst the devastation, there was life, people banding together to rebuild what had been lost. Cadden couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They'd faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, and now they had a future to look forward to, a world to reclaim. "Think we'll ever get used to this?" Cadden asked as they surveyed the damage. Thalo shook his head, the lines on his brow deepening. "I hope not. Complacency breeds disaster." "Good point," Cadden said with a chuckle. "I guess we'll just have to keep them on their toes." As they continued their journey, the city around them slowly came back to life. People were already at work, clearing debris, patching up what they could. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could bloom. Cadden spotted a group of children playing amidst the ruins, their laughter a balm to his weary soul. "Look at that," he said to Thalo, gesturing toward the kids. "You can knock us down, but you'll never keep us down." Thalo nodded, his expression one of admiration. "Humans are tenacious." "Damn right we are," Cadden replied. "And proud of it." As they made their way back to headquarters, Cadden reflected on all they'd accomplished. The aliens had come to Earth with plans of domination, only to be thwarted by a ragtag group of rebels who refused to give in. It wasn't the end of the war, far from it. But it was a victory, a hard-fought triumph that would be remembered for generations to come. And as they walked toward the future, Cadden allowed himself to embrace the chaos, to revel in the unpredictability that had become his greatest ally. Because that was the essence of humanity, to adapt, to survive, to thrive in the face of impossible odds. Chaos was their greatest ally, and as long as they embraced it, Earth would stand strong. "Ready for the next round, Thalo?" Cadden asked, his voice filled with determination. Thalo's gaze was steely, his resolve unwavering. "Always, let them come." With that, they stepped forward, leaving the past behind and setting their sights on the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Because no matter what the universe threw at them, they would rise, stronger and more determined than ever. And in the end, that was all that mattered.